Good evening and welcome to the January 2026 feature program for the Madison DX Club. And I'd like to have Bob, our program chairman, introduce our speaker. Take it away, Bob.
Okay, well, it's a pleasure to have Hal Turley with us tonight. W8HC. Hal is the secretary, I think, secretary and maybe treasurer of NEXA, and he's a well-known DXer, quite accomplished. He's been on many DXpeditions, and we were blessed to have him give us a program on many of those, which turned out to be quite an interesting travel log last year. And so when I heard that Hal was going to be embedded with the Russian DX team in Burundi, I jumped on it and thought, boy, we got to get him in here and tell us what it's like to work with those guys, because, you know, I have a pretty good opinion of them, especially their operations on the low bands. They've come through for me with lots of new countries on the low bands, especially in Africa. So I was excited to hear that Hal was going to be with them. So Hal, whenever you're ready, go ahead. We're eager to hear all about it.
Okay, well, I'll say good evening to everyone. And Bob, I appreciate the opportunity to be with the Madison group again. And just seems like time has flown since our last visit. But it is great to be with you guys and do this presentation this evening. I hope you find it interesting and informative. And I guess the first thing I will need to do is have my screen up, and so I don't know. I hit the share screen button here.
Yep, should work.
Okay, let me do that, and I'm going to put this in presentation mode. And I hope it goes into is that in presentation mode? Are you seeing the slides on the side, or?
Yeah, it's still slides on the side.
There we are. I think that'll work.
It does.
Okay, very good. And I saw Glenn Johnson here, so it was good to know Glenn's in the audience. And hope Glenn's doing well. So I'll say hello to him.
Hi, but I'm doing well.
Hey, buddy. All right, good to see you. Good to hear you. So I entitled this one the 2025 9U1RU Burundi DXpedition, a DXpedition that almost wasn't, and I'll kind of explain that when we get through this. But you know, before I really get into this, and Bob, you did a good job introing the Desecheo DXpedition and what's going on there. But I did want to make mention of the fact that I have been tapped to be one of the remote operators on this. And the beauty of this DXpedition for those of us that are familiar with remote operating, and I know Glenn is, and perhaps a few others are as well, is the incorporation of the solar panels and the batteries that Ezekiel, who's the kind of the mastermind of the RDU concept, has incorporated into this, and it's going to hopefully allow amateurs the opportunity to get to some of these places that we're continually seeing the no, you can't go, you know, from the Fish and Wildlife folks. So this is a very important DXpedition in terms of its success could lead to other DXpeditions of like nature to remote Pacific islands, perhaps, where we are not granted access due to the fact that you know, we've mitigated the whole fuel, gasoline, what have you, on island with power source for our radio equipment. So, you know, a lot of people are going to be watching this. Hopefully, it will work out well. And so I do want to give credit to Easy and Otis for their effort in this. Right now, they're on 20 meter CW. I think they're going to throttle back to one transmitter one radio tonight to conserve power, and we're being asked to operate FT8 at 30 watts. If you work us on FT8, there's currently 30 watts output power going to the compromised vertical antenna. And Otis just sent a message to the operators and said to cut the CW power back to 40 watts. So, we're trying to maintain our power so we can optimize during the gray lines and try to get into some of those remote places. But we've got 30 days if all goes well, and should make a lot of folks happy with this K5P DXpedition. So the question that I've been asked more than once is, how did I end up with the Russian DX team? And as Bob said, they've got a really good reputation as far as I'm concerned. And so I did want to address it. How did I end up with these guys as the first American to be a part of the Russian DXpedition to a remote area like Burundi? And I have to kind of look back to 4 Russian Robinson Club DXpeditions that I've been involved with, basically because of my involvement with the Russian Robinson Club and Yuri, November 3 Queen, who's a very active IOTA guy with the Russian Robinson Club, lives out in the Seattle area. My first participation with him at ADAC Island at KL7RRC in 2021. Then we went to Kiska in 2022, and then out to Tutuila in American Samoa in 23. And then this past year in February, there were some Russians involved with our Costa Rica and Panama operation, and one of the guest stars of that operation was Raiza. If you all follow her on social media, R1BIG, she's just a pistol and a great ambassador for amateur radio. But we had 2 other Russians on the team, one of which was Slav OK8 Alpha Uniform, who emigrated from Russia to Czech Republic about 13 years ago, and he and I got to be really good friends on that DXpedition. At the conclusion of the expedition, he asked me if I would ever consider participating with the RUDX activity, and I told him that I might be interested, but we would have to wait and see how things progress. I was coming off of this one. He was quite active last year in 2025. He spent a month down in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and then Panama with that DXpedition. And then in July, he was part of the 4-man operation and went to Mozambique. They did 2 IOTA activations at C93 and C94 RRCs, and then spent almost a month with the 9U1RU. So he's a very prolific DXer in his own right. You look him up on QRZ and you'll see he's been on most of the African DXpeditions that the Russian guys have been on. And, I told him I might be interested. In less than a month later, I got a formal invitation from Vasily R7 Alpha Lima, who was the team leader of this and who also has been on many RUDX DXpeditions in Africa and elsewhere. And I told Vasily, I said, look, I'm scheduled for a total knee replacement in April. I'll let you know how things go with that. And fortunately, I recovered, or I'm almost recovered still, but I recovered well enough thanks to my long-haired dachshund who stayed right with me the whole time I was laid up. But I told him I'd let him know, and so in the meantime, I'm looking this. I learned a little bit about Burundi. I know it's in Africa. I think I had Burundi on all bands 10 through 160, except for 80 meters. I didn't have an 80-meter contact. But it was number 60 on Club Lock's most wanted list at the time. Looking a little deeper, the U.S. State Department did not. They had a level 3, which meant reconsider travel, or it was a reconsider your travel there, and so I looked a little closer, and there's areas they tell you do not go into these areas for various reasons, and so I definitely am interested in this. The country itself, you see on the map there on the left, it's the little green dot there right above the lake, which is Lake Tanganyika. It's about the size of New Jersey. There's approximately 14 million residents there, and it's considered one of the poorest countries in the world. And I think about 80% of the population lives on less than $2 a day. And so it's a very, very poor country. Gitega is the political capital, and Bujumbura is considered the economic capital. And Bujumbura is right on the northeast corner there of Lake Tanganyika, and that's the business and economic capital of the country. And so August 15th, I booked my flights. I was going to fly from Charleston, CRW, down to Atlanta on Delta. And overnight, I stayed overnight at the recommendation of my travel agent, and then fly out of Atlanta on Ethiopian Airlines to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia on the 29th, and would arrive there the next day on the 30th, and then the flight departing out of Addis Ababa to Bujumbura at 11:30 that morning, and arrive. It's a short flight, couple hours. And you notice the photos I included in here. This is the only time I've ever flown business class on a DXpedition, and I may be spoiled now, but because of my leg situation, I thought, why not? So it really made it tolerable, and I actually got some rest and enjoyed it. So by the time everything rolled around, the team had been assembled. And here was the team. We had started out with 11. We had one that dropped off the team. Leo, RW9JZ, Ark, UA4 Charlie, Slava, of course, myself, Mike, RU3UR, Lodek, SP6EQZ, who's the Polish. He's a very prolific DXpeditioner with the Polish guys. RA4DX Andy, Nick, R5 Echo Charlie, Victor, UA3, Queen Lima, Charlie, and Vasily, of course. And so we started out with a 10-member team. 2 of the guys had to leave after about 8 or 9 days. But that was the team. Great group of guys, and we'll learn more about them here in a minute. But so there's several issues for me. Obviously, being the non-Russians, fluent in Russian at all. So we had the Russian English language issue. Vasily is fluent in English, so most of the conversation and interaction that I had with him was done through WhatsApp, and then on the other side you had the Russian and Burundi issue where Vasily's trying to make arrangements, book the hotels, get transportation, and so on and so forth. And so he had that going on. So, Google Translator was my friend, although it did get to be kind of cumbersome. And then we had other issues as well with there's international internet restrictions and sanctions, of course, on Russia right now with the situation with Russia and Ukraine. And so we were able to utilize WhatsApp for the most part to communicate, and that made it somewhat easier for all of us. So for those of you that have ever been on a DXpedition, I've kind of compiled a little list, and these are what I consider, and this is not all inclusive, what I consider to be the necessary ingredients for a successful DXpedition. I think if you lose, 1 or 2 of these, it could tank the whole thing. And obviously, having the operating license and call sign, this is issue that the Felipe's having down in San Ambrosia, down off the coast of Chile. You're going to have permission from the authorities. You're going to have a QTH. Usually, when you enter a country, you're going to have to, on your visa, if it requires a visa, you're going to have to indicate where you're going to be located. And then, Captain Obvious also says you're going to have all your station equipment, radios, power supplies, everything that goes into putting on a DXpedition. You're going to have a power source, either commercial or generator power. And if you have generator, you're going to have fuel. It's good to have experienced operators to have a successful DXpedition. And you're going to have some propagation. If the bands are dead, it doesn't matter. All the other things above are meaningless, and so forth. Before you're not going to be successful. And then I included this one here, a reliable internet access, and that's kind of become something that in the last 3 or 4 years, especially with the advent of Starlink, we see where internet has become a part of our expedition. And in this case, we had instant access to our 2 pilots, who I want to acknowledge, Steve N2AJ, who is also the pilot for the KP5 Desecheo, the expedition right now. He's doing a great job. And then Champ, Echo 21 Echo India Charlie, did a super job with the Asian side of our piloting and letting us know what was going on out there. Now I'm going to break from tradition here a little bit. Normally you see these slides at the conclusion of a DXpedition, but normally, I've kind of found that guys are, dozing off, or they've already logged off. And based on what Bob said, I want to go ahead and throw this out here now, because I'm very, very proud of the results that this DXpedition was able to provide to the DX community. I hope you guys, if you didn't get an all-time new one, I'm hopeful that you got at least a few challenge points. It got nothing but positive feedback in terms of the operation. But, looking at 9U1RU by the numbers, we were there for 21 days. We started out with 10 operators and ended up with 8. 179,828 QSOs. And I'm really proud of this. We had 41,360 uniques in the log, or 23% of our contacts were unique call signs. 8,659 contacts per day, 361 per hour. And so here's where the rubber kind of meets the road, because a lot of times now you'll see DXpeditions are digital or FT8 heavy. And so we concluded with over 41,000 CW contacts, 25,000 phone contacts, and a whopping 113,000 digital contacts. I just checked Club Log yesterday. So we were, Burundi 9 Uniform was number 60 before we went there. It is now 106 on Club Log's most wanted list. I don't know of any entity that's dropped that far that fast than 9U1RU. Looking at from the DXCC breakdown, we ended up with a 7-band DXCC and 201 total DXCC entities worked. And if you look at let me see if I can move this out of the way. Oh, I can't do that. Let me see if I can minimize this. Yeah, so I can see better. Crap. So we had on the 6 meters, which we had a couple of phenomenal openings on 6 meters, 74 DXCC entities on 6 meters, which I thought was pretty remarkable. We had some really good openings at that time. You all may or may not be aware of this, but the German DX Foundation keeps records of all the DXpeditions on record. It's called the Mega DXpeditions Honor Roll, and 9U1RU places, I say, number 4 most QSOs for all DXpeditions, and there's 468 DXpeditions in their database. And if you look on their website, they've got us at number 5, but number 3, Tango 32 Tango Tango, it's got 3 little asterisks beside it, and it indicates, according to club log, there are 58% of their contacts are duplicate contacts in their log. So they went ahead and put them up there anyway. But so this is the 4th most QSOs of any DXpedition ever. It's the most QSOs of any DXpedition in the last 14 years. So we were real proud about that. We saw that we were going to crack 100,000, and then we saw we were going to crack 150,000. We were really hoping that we could break 200,000, but things don't always work out. We had made a booking with the Sayala Club Hotel and Restaurant. It's located between Bujumbura and Gitega, the capital there. The location is 3.5 degrees south of the equator, but the elevation there is 7,750 feet above sea level. So, the weather situation there is quite unique. And, our antenna angles were quite unique from there. And I'll get into a little bit more of that. But we had booked this probably maybe 2.5, 3 months before we were to leave. One of the neat things about this place is it had a fence wall around it. I mean, it was secure. There was a gate. The only way to get in was through 2 gates, and there was a security guard there. So, we knew we would be secure. It had enough access, the property around it, the courtyard, and the property even outside the courtyard for antennas. And so, it looked like this was going to be a nice location for us. Fortunately, though, about a month before we were to leave, we got a visit from Murphy, and Vasily got an email that told him that the hotel was going to be closed for maintenance and it would be unavailable. So this created a real scramble. Obviously, he made some contacts over there. He in Burundi. He contacted the Russian embassy, and they somehow turned him on to Sylvester Havyarimana. I can't say it. And it's this gentleman here, and he had lived for several years in Russia. He was very fluent in Russia. He went to school in Russia. He was from Burundi and had gone to school there. And so he had agreed to help us, with our find another QTH. Actually, he found us 2 potential QTHs. One of them was within a half a mile of the Sayala Club. But he also told Vasily that, one thing you guys need to know is that they lose power here about every day, sometimes several times a day, and you might want to secure generators for backup, and so that was a consideration. So Vasily works out some kind of arrangement with Sylvester, and so that was how they connected. Now this photo, I actually took this photo. It was from a video that I got a couple weeks or so. It was maybe 2 weeks before we were to leave, and it was a video that Sylvester had sent Vasily, and it was in Russian. Vasily shared it with the team, and I wasn't able to determine anything other than, here's this woman, it looks like she's holding diapers, and I made an assumption, well, this is his wife, that's his baby. He's asking us if we can bring diapers, because I know it's a poor country, and so I asked Vasily, I said, is he asking us if we could bring diapers and baby formula and so forth? And he said yes. So I made up my mind, if I had room in one of my suitcases, I would take diapers and baby formula and baby wipes. Okay, so let's move on here. So now we have a choice, because we come up, we're like 2 days before we're to fly out, and apparently Sylvester contacts Vasily, said he had been in touch with the Ciela Hotel. They said that they will prolong or postpone their maintenance, and you all can stay there, which is great. And you see that in this aerial photo, the building there at about 3 o'clock with the yellow line, that's the Ciela Hotel. The building structure that you see at about 10 o'clock is the other hotel. It's located on another road, but anyway, so we have a choice, and so we're going to wait and find out when we get there. What are we going to do? We want to look at both of them and see which one or both even gives us the best opportunity. So the guys from Russia, they fly out of Moscow. I'm to fly out the next day. Actually, I'm going to fly out of Atlanta the next day, and I'm leaving my home with one of the things that I'm taking is that on the lower right computer case is an ICOM 7610 that was graciously donated by DX Engineering, and I'm going to take that over. That's going to be one of our it's going to be our primary phone station, actually. So I have that, and I'm going to take that with me. And I'm sitting in Atlanta. I sent a message. Now this is kind of busy, but I'm just going to read just a short. I sent Vasily a message, and he comes back and he says, "You must already be in Bujumbura." This was on the 29th of October. I said, "No, I'm still in Atlanta. My flight leaves to Ethiopia in 2 hours. I won't arrive till tomorrow." And so they are already there in Bujumbura. And so I asked him, so how was the entry process? Let me know how difficult it is getting in customs and getting the visa. He said, visa is quite easy, took 15 minutes for all, but custom is crazy. I'll tell you later. So, so here you go. So the next day I arrive and I get a message from Vasily, says, "Hal, we're already at the airport." Okay. So I'm trying to clear custom. I got my visa. It was $90 to get the visa. I'm going through with my baggage and that computer case with the ICOM 7610. I put it up on the little conveyor belt to run it through X-ray machine or whatever. And they pull it off, and the lady asked me, she says, what is this? I says, it's a radio. She says, open it up. I open it up, and she says, do you have the receipt for that? I said, well, I do have the receipt for it. And so I give them receipt. She says, take this over to the man sitting over there at that table. Well, there was a man sitting over there. It was just like a folding table. He had a laptop computer, and he's looking at the receipt that the DX Engineering sent me for the radio. And he takes a piece of notebook paper and writes on it, and he says, "You're going to have to pay this." And I'm looking at it, and it was like 315 million. It was some crazy number. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do with this. He says, go around the corner here and show them. So I went around there. It was like a bank. It's like an exchange. And there's a lady there, and I'm showing her, and she's looking at it, scratching her head. She says, is there anybody here? Are you supposed to meet anybody here? And I said, yes. She says, you need to find them. And so they let me go out of the airport, outside there, and then I saw Vasily and Sylvester. I met them for the first time, and they had come back. They had arrived yesterday, the day before, and they had to come back the next day. Everything that they had was sitting in the freight warehouse. They would not let them come through. They took that ICOM 7610, it ended up in the freight warehouse. And so we're there. They've been there all day long. Two of the other guys were there, met them, and you see all I have is my suitcases and my backpack, and the radio is in the other room with the all of their stuff, which we'll see here in a minute. Meanwhile, Ark and two of the other guys are up looking at this other location. They're trying to see, okay, what's what, where will we want to set up and so forth. So it's not a total waste. And so this kind of gives you an idea of the other QTH. And if you see the hillside behind them, that's pointed right in the direction of North America and Europe. And so that was going to be problematic, of course. Meanwhile, back in the warehouse, you see there's 7 or 8 pallets of all of our DXpedition equipment, and they've been working on this all day. They worked on it the previous day. They're inventorying it. They're opening it up. They're looking to see what's in there. They're talking. Sylvester's there. He's making phone calls. Money's exchanging hands. And so all of this stuff is sitting there. They're going to close the warehouse I think at 5:30 it was supposed to close. They had hired a truck to come to take it up to, which was about an hour and a half drive from the airport to our QTH. So they had a truck sitting there waiting to load everything up. And so finally, they agreed to release all of the stuff. If you look at this photo, you see this was one of the few times I did snap a photo. Sylvester's counting money. The guy that he's getting ready to hand it to has got a smile on his face. And Vasily and Andy are standing there with their arms closed, their arms folded, and they know that, this is not going well. But we did get our stuff. We started loading the truck. And I don't know if there's audio with this. It had rained. And it's starting to get dark, and we still have we still had about 3 or 4 hours ahead of us because we had to stop at the store, we had to stop and eat. So they worked a little bit of overtime, and so we finally got all our stuff. We arrived at about 11:30 that night. It's my first look. I'm staying in room number 4 at Cielo Club. Nice, it was a nice, clean place. Next morning, I get up, and Sylvester's there. He drove back, and he's wanted to see how we're doing, what we need. He's Johnny on the spot, and so I had an opportunity to talk to him. The items that I brought from home, the diapers and so forth, that I gave them to him. I said, "This is for your wife and your baby." No, it's not my wife and baby. He proceeded to tell me about what he does. He is the head of, it's called Back to Life. They're in Bujumbura. It's a mission. It's a Christian orphanage, if you will. And he one of these items for the children there, the babies there at the Back to Life missionary. And I told him, I said, well, I'd be very much interested in seeing what you have there. And I said, so if we can arrange, where I can go with you, go back down and go to Bujumbura, I'd love to see what you have. And so a couple of days later, he sends me another video, and these are the items that I had given him, and he had the lady thank me and so forth. So she did get them for her baby. Meanwhile, that first morning, first item of business is to start putting up antennas naturally, get the stations up. A spider beam for 10, 15, and 20 was the first thing to go up. Ark and Big Mike set up a makeshift two stations there, and they started operating FT8, I believe. Meanwhile, the team, we're starting to put antennas up. We put them up in front of the building, the hotel, and behind, up above the hill. This is back up behind on the hill. This is one of the work spider beams. We had triplexers. These guys had everything. They're like a machine, as Bob said. They've done this so many times. They know exactly what they need. So we had triplexers for the two work bands. We had for the two work beams. We had triplexers for the 10, 15, and 20 meter spider beams. Two sets of bandpass filters, and there were high power bandpass filters for the low bands as well. And there's a below deck. This is one of the temporary stations before we start getting serious, moving tables, figuring out where we're going to put things, and so all this is happening really, really fast. And so this was first day there after losing a full operating day. The first day that we're there, the 160 meter vertical is going up. I don't think I've ever been on a DXpedition where a 160 meter antenna goes up the first day. Normally it's, you get all the high frequency stuff up first, and then after the maybe third or fourth day, you'll put up a 160 meter antenna as an afterthought. So this was a first for me to have 160 meter antenna up. The 80 meter antenna went up as well. Just to give you some idea. There was a little patch of land that adjacent to the hotel, outside the wall where we put this up. There's the hotel back that way, and so and then down below, this was a work band spider beam that we put up. We had visitors. They watched us. They were in amazement. They want to know how they could help, and they want to know how they can help and what they can do to. You might want to give them some money. The one word that I learned while I was over there is Mzungu, and Mzungu means a white person. And if for little kids, they'll say Mzungu, and as soon as the words come out of their mouth, they've got their hand out, and they're wanting something. Or if they do something for you, they should get paid. The 6 meter Yagi, we had a 7-element 6 meter Yagi that was a homebrew. That's a homebrew Yagi that Leah RW9JZ made, and we erected it down front there. But then ended up moving it out back. I wanted to try to do some EME with this, but of course we didn't have elevation. I would have been able to do EME on our moonrise, but on Moonset, trying to work North America, that hill back over there's no way you didn't have a view of the. In fact, there's the hill there in the photo on the right. You would be just pointing to the side of a hill. So a lot of antennas are going up. Back when we're done here, we had 160 meter vertical, 80 meter vertical. We had two 40 meter verticals, two spider beams. And what we did, if you look at the photo there, the yellow arrow there on the right is on the east side of the hotel. All of the antennas for the phone and CW and low band stations were on that side of the hotel. On the back side, on the left arrow, were the digital for FT8. So we had antennas, a full complement of antennas, except low band. We had full complement on each side of the hotel. They were kind of out of the way of each other. And so we had spider beams for work. We had two sets of those spider beams for 10, 15, and 20. We had a 5-element 10-meter hex beam that we put up late because 10-meter, we really wanted to hit 10 meters hard. We had a 7-element 6-meter beam. We put up a 60-meter sloping dipole back up on the hill there, and then 300-foot beverages. We had 2 different beverages strung out to the northeast there. So this was what the phone CW and low band room that we had 4 QRO stations in this room that we operated for the duration, and so here's the guys in there. We move things around. We would move things around, make it a little bit more ergonomic, get stuff out of the way. But this was our phone and CW station. Another view. So the guy on the right is Nick, and he's Romeo 5 Echo Charlie. He's the only mode he operates his phone. If you worked phone, there's a good possibility that you worked him. He would sit in that chair 24/7 if you let him. And Silly, the IC 7610. This is the digital room, the FT8 room. That Leo manned this. This was actually his room. So his bed's in there. And we after we got finished, it was 40 meters through 6 meters, and most of the time, or let's say some of the time, we had seven stations, FT8 stations going, and there's 7 in this image. So and he had amplifiers for 4 stations. And so I would, after dinner, he and I would share a beer there and talk about the day's activity. And anytime that if I wasn't operating, if there was a 6-meter opening, I would be there to be with him, and we kind of work in tandem to do that. This was Leo, his beam together there when we had it out front. Now that direction, this is from the porch of the hotel there, and it's just a beautiful takeoff angle, but that's the JA. Okay, that's pretty much looking east. We did not have a really good takeoff to North America and Europe, unfortunately. And so we're in full expedition mode now. Everybody's we've got a schedule that the Vasily put together that he would send us. He would change it periodically, but everybody's in the groove here. We're making contact, getting great signal reports, and things are starting to go pretty well. Till we had some issues with our the commercial service that Sylvester had mentioned. It started out, we started having frequent breaker trips there in the hotel, and so we would reset the breaker and try to cut back the power and so on and so forth. The other issue we had, the whole area, geographic area, and there was a town down below us you could see, we would lose electrical service for the whole grid, I guess, would go out. And it could be anywhere from half hour to an hour to 4 hours to, I think, probably one time we had about a 6-hour loss of power. And so as far as the breaker situation, they got some this Vasily and the guy, a couple of electricians that service the hotel there, purchased some wire. They bypassed the breaker box and ran two circuits. And that was the plan. We were running 2 circuits. And if you look closely, down about 3 o'clock, you'll see 2 white wires coming across the roof there. And one's going into room number 1, and the other one's going into room number 2. Those are our 2 stations. And that hopefully was going to eliminate part of the problem. And then, of course, we couldn't do anything at all about the complete loss of service unless we had the generator. So, and I did put a note in here I calculated we lost a little greater than 36 hours of power during the expedition. So two 7,500 watt diesel generators were procured, brought up at a pretty good price. We found that one of them wasn't, it was not worth even bringing up. So we only had one healthy generator. And so the decision was made to utilize this generator to exclusively power the digital room, LEO's FTH stations. And so a circuit was run to that, which worked out to be a really good idea. Now, I don't know if you guys were operating in middle of November there, November 11th and 12th. We had some X-class solar flares that hammered us pretty badly. And so somebody sent me a little clip off of DX Summit with the calculated conditions. It was poor day and night, and we lost a lot of cues in log, I'm sure, because of that. But again, it's not in our hands. So what do you do when the bins are dead or you've lost power and the sun's out? You go outside and you get some sun. This is at 7,700 feet. And by the way, I didn't realize it till after about 2 or 3 days that I acclimated. But I was having trouble breathing. I don't think I'd ever been at that elevation before. But anyway, we would catch some sun, and Blodeck would drink his daily beer out there and enjoy. We enjoyed that. And there were days when it was cold, and here we are, we're bundled up in jackets. And Ark had some scotch. I've never had scotch before, but that was pretty good stuff. So we warmed up drinking scotch and bundled up like I'm getting ready to go skiing there. And we'd visit and so forth. Or I would sit on a little veranda there and look out and just look how beautiful this country was and think, it reminded me a little bit of West Virginia, the hills of West Virginia. These were serious mountains over there. So Victor and I decided we were going to settle this whole the Russia-U.S. thing. So we had a duel, and so the local bureau there is Promise, so we backed up and we were going to take 10 paces and see who could drink their beer the fastest, and that would determine world peace and all that good stuff. Well, he cheated. Look at him. I mean, he's getting a head start on me, and so I lost, but we had a lot of fun. And this he's a super guy, and I really enjoyed meeting him and operating with him. We ate pretty good there for breakfast. Every morning they fixed us an omelet. You didn't have toast. You had an omelet. You might have bread. If you were lucky, you had butter. For dinner, you had a choice of 3 things. You could either have fish, spaghetti, or beef. And then there was always a salad served with it. You could have rice or pommes frites, French fries. After about 4 days, I think we were there. We had a visit from the Russian embassy, and so the ambassador didn't come, but some of the emissaries and consulate folks were there. There were maybe 7 or 8 of them. They wanted to see what we were doing. And they told us what you must do is see the Royal Drummers of Burundi. While you're here, you definitely need to do that. So we arranged an excursion. There were 4 of us that went. It was kind of pricey. We had to hire a vehicle and a tour guide and so forth. I don't know if you're going to get audio on this, but this is definitely worth seeing. Can somebody tell me, is there audio?
No audio.
Okay. All right. Well, then I won't continue it. It's a pretty amazing display, and it's something that they've been doing for years and years and years. And so, I was happy that we got to go see that and experience that. And so the situation with Sylvester, I got to thinking, well, maybe there's some way that we can help him. In DXA, and I think it was mentioned that I'm an officer, I'm treasurer in DXA. I thought, well, maybe this will be a good fit for Index's humanitarian aid project. It's what we call Hands with Hearts. I mean, this is just an ideal opportunity to try for amateur radio to partner with a local mission, and it fits very well. I contacted the board of directors, and we ended up with a grant, and I had enough spare cash to come up with $600, and so we and if you have read maybe the winter newsletter, Index newsletter, I wrote an article for that here a couple weeks ago, so you can read about the project, the humanitarian project with the Back to Life Association of Sylvester's, but so I had him. He came and got me. I had $600 cash, and we took that $600 and went down to the bank. Now there's two economies in Burundi, in Bujumbura, at the bank there. He didn't go in the bank. He met somebody on the outside of the bank. So they literally call it black market. So you can take $600, you can walk into the bank, and you can walk out with 1.8 million Burundi francs, or you can take your $600 and give it to somebody who I don't know, and on the black market, and get 3.6 million Burundi francs. So we opted for the 3.6 million Burundi francs because you could buy more food for the children at his mission. And so we went to the market there in town. He loaded up a taxi cab, and then we loaded up the back of his vehicle as well. So we hired a cab and went to his Back to Life Association, which is in conjunction with what they call the Hee Haw Happy School. There's about 50 or 60 children behind the wall here. And when we went inside, I was literally swarmed by these kids wondering who I am, what am I doing here, what have you. Now, Sylvester introduced me, but in all the stuff that we purchased at the market, they did a little thank you thing there, got a couple of photos. But that $600 bought 550 pounds of rice, 250 kilograms of rice, 440 pounds of beans, 100 kilograms or 220 pounds of flour, got a 5.2 liter or gallon, 20 liter container of cooking oil, and then there was money left over that he bought sweets for the kids, which is just little suckers and so forth. But these are food items that these people desperately need for the mission there, because and there's one of the little kids with their little sucker here. On that wall outside the facility, he's got this mural on here, and he told me the story. And the first panel of it was from 2019, and this is a trash dump. This is the main trash dump. A picture depicting it outside of Bujumbura, and he was called to go to that dump and rescue these children. Children go there, and they're there all day. They follow the trash trucks as they come in. They're looking for food. They're looking for items that they might be able to scavenge and sell or use, whatever, instead of being in school. And so he goes there, and in the painting there, the mural, the guy with the red shirt is him. And this is how he talks to these kids. This is where he finds kids to come to the Back to Life and the Hee Haw school. And so, I was very, very moved by his story. He asked me, he said, "Do you want to go see the dump?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So we drove there. Never seen anything like it. There may be like this in other parts of the world. I'm not sure here in the U.S., but you have children all over the place carrying things out of the dump. And this just confirmed to me what a great person that Sylvester is, and how he truly is. He believes in what he's doing, and he's doing good stuff. And I asked him, I said, the poverty rate is so high here. You're only touching a fraction. How do you deal with that? How do you rationalize that? And he explained it to me, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's caused me to really think about my life, and think about the hobby that we're in, and here we were over here in this country, doing our thing. You've got people like Sylvester. He took time out of his busy schedule to help us. And I'm 100% convinced that if it weren't for him and what he did to help us, that this DXpedition would not have happened. And he did it with a smile on his face. He didn't expect anything. He was rewarded for his efforts, but he did so much to make the 9U1RU happen, and probably in ways that he would never understand. And so I'm grateful to Slava OK Alpha Uniform for inviting me, and for Vasily for inviting me. Grateful for DX Engineering for Tim Duffy, who Tim made it plain. He said, "Hal, support you on any DXpedition you go on," and so I'm grateful to Tim. And so it's just a wonderful experience for me to be part of this. And I hope maybe someday I'll have another opportunity to be with these guys, because they truly are great guys. They're great DXpeditioners. I learned a lot, and it was just a valuable experience for me. And I hope the DX community got a little something out of this, and we made a few people happy. That's what it's all about. Putting cues in the log and making folks happy. So, I again appreciate the opportunity to be with the Madison DX Club. Appreciate your attentiveness, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them. So thank you very much.
Well, Hal, thank you, and thanks for being a fantastic representative of the entire DX community. And the stuff about the children is very moving. It's very important, and I'm really glad you share that with us, because it puts another whole dimension on the countries we work, the people on the other end, the situations that they live in, and so it's just a wonderful message that you delivered to us tonight. And I certainly learned a lot more about this country and their people, and I'm certain everyone you met over there holds you and your fellow DXers in very, very high esteem. So thank you. So do we have any questions for Hal?
Yeah, I have one, Sam Ledbetter. What kind of radios were you using? I know you took the ICOM 9600, but what other brands were you using as well?
We had probably a half a dozen K3s, which K3, in my opinion, it's kind of it's my favorite DXpedition radio. Let's put it that way. So we had probably half a dozen K3s. We had several Sun SDRs, which we use those on. We had one that we used in the phone station on the low bands, and we had and RTTY, and then we had a couple of them over in the digital room. But it was basically I was either on the 7610 or I was on the K3s.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I didn't mention anything about the weather there. You know, it probably rained every day we were there at some point in time. You could see the storm roll in across that valley. We had some very violent storms. This place is three degrees below the equator. We had sleet or hail, actually. I guess it was hail. One afternoon. About pea-size hail, and it would get cold. It would get cold at night, and they didn't have heat. There was no heat, and so I sleep in my clothes. Anyway.
Hal, I have a question. Ron K0Z. Being so close to the equator, did you get a lot of QRM during the day because of the electromagnetic jet? Was that, more pronounced than it is in the northern or southern latitudes?
I did not notice that. What I did notice, and this may have been because we were out, we were out in the boonies. The bands were relatively quiet, and so I didn't notice anything that was adverse in terms of causing me interference or noise or anything. But no, it was one of the most quiet locations I've been.
I believe you said that you started with 10 people, 10 operators, and ended up with 8.
Right.
What's the fallout?
So the two guys that left, they had work commitments, and so that's why they had to leave. They from the get-go, that was and Vasily told me, he said, you can stay the whole 21 days or apart, whatever, and so I don't know how they would have made that up, but the two guys that left, the one guy, Andy, I forget his call off the top of my head. He didn't operate that much, so I don't even. I know he was an antenna guy. He was always working on antennas, and this was one of the unique things about these guys. They don't stop. If they're not operating, they're doing something. There's a few times you saw the photos where we just goofing off and stuff, but they're either moving antennas, relocating antennas, or relocating the beverages. I mean, they're serious. They're serious about this stuff, and I respect that. Very very organized, very disciplined as well. So.
Hey Hal, this is N9EE. You mentioned you had some electrical service challenges there, and I'm just wondering what did you do to protect your equipment from spikes or variable voltage levels?
Yeah, we did have some issues with that. Everything was fused. We had like our power supplies, our 12 volt supplies were fused, and there were times where the voltage would drop, and the radios, and the power would go off. I mean, you wouldn't know it, except the radio would blank out. Then you'd have to restart the radio, and so we had that, but it was just one of those things where if something was going to happen, it was going to happen. But the one generator that we had, it was very reliable. It was both of those were rated at 7,500 watts. You could probably operate maybe 3,000 watts. It would bog down. We calculated the amps that we had on with the FTH stations. We're running about 3,000 watts, and you could, on the cycles where all the radios are running on the same cycle, you could hear that generator bog down, on transmit. And you're thinking, well, it should be able to handle that. But, they were old. They were old generators. And I'm not sure how many gallons of fuel we ended up going through, but we had probably 20 5-gallon containers, like 20 liter canisters. And that was another issue that facility had, was trying to get fuel. It's a landlocked country, so they don't have any. If anything comes in, it's got to be shipped in. Naturally, I think he said a liter of diesel was like $7 US, and that's black market dollars. Okay, so it was kind of a costly proposition, but I think it paid off.
Wow.
Anything else?
Great presentation, Hal. Really appreciate it. And gosh, that was an amazing QTH. That escarpment was. What direction did that face?
From the front.
Yeah,
that's to the east, which was not optimum. I mean, that's it. We were shooting through a hillside to North America and Europe, so yeah, it would have been nice if that would have been to the north. But I'm surprised we did as well as we did, honestly. But yeah, if you had a good takeoff in all directions from like you did to the east, that would just been a phenomenal location. Like I say, I've never been at 7,700 feet above sea level, and just looking out the expanse, I mean, you can see forever.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot. And
Thank you all.
And we hope when you come back from your next, DXpedition and whatever, that you'll come back and share it with us again. This was great. We'll get this up on our YouTube channel shortly, and we'll let you know. And I wish everyone a good evening.
Okay, thanks a lot. You all take care. 73.